So one of the things that was so powerful about that moment personally for me was that you came to me with like the tonality that you weren't upset with me, right? Because like I think as men, when we find our wives being upset with us, right? Like, why didn't you do this? Why did you do it that way? We immediately can become defensive. And instead, I think the teaching point here, friends, is that she came to me and she said, "Hey, honey, can I share something with you?" Like that to me, like was you set me up in a good way to say, "Hey, I've got something that's important to me that's on my heart that I want to share with you." All righty, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Champion Life podcast. I'm your host, Curt Tucker, and today I have my co-host, my beautiful wife, Rachel, with me. How you doing, babe?
Good. And we got Piper.
We got both.
We got a Secret Service in the room and Maverick.
We got both the dogs at our feet. And so today, guys, we're going to talk about communication is king in marriage, just like cash is king. When it comes to making business deals or whatever, we're going to talk about communication is king. And this kind of just comes about from the last couple months in our marriage. We spent some time out in Colorado with Pastor Keith Kraft and his wife and some of our marriage mastermind peeps. And so if you're in a point, and even if you're not married, by the way, I just want to say this, communication will always be a part of everything you do. You could be a single mom, single dad. You could be, a young entrepreneur. You could be whatever. Communication is always going to be so foundational to everything that you do. So I want to encourage you to stay tuned to this episode. And also, I got a cool offer at the very end that I think you may be interested in. So anyhow, so here's the deal. Let's talk about communication. And we got 3 specific things that we're going to talk about today. But when it comes to communication, honey, let's just start this, because you love to say this quote that failures should have what? Seminars. And what we mean by that, guys, is that you can learn just as much from what somebody has done that didn't work from as much as somebody saying, "Hey, listen, this is what you should do," right? Mm-hmm. So we want to give you guys a couple examples of how we failed over the years, because we're coming up on 20 years of marriage. June 1st, 2025, Rachel and I will be celebrating 20 years of marriage. And it hasn't been easy, but I recorded something earlier today where it's a choose your hard. Like, at the end of the day, being married is hard and getting divorced is hard. Just like, getting in shape is hard and being, sick is hard. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that has worked for us, but we're going to start by talking, a little bit of what some things have not worked for us. So what comes to your mind when you think about some areas that we have struggled with in our own marriage and that you see other marriages or relationships struggling with as well?
Well, I do have to say this. I've actually been studying communication and personality types for years. And just as a coach, like that's kind of like it should be a must, because you have to understand how to communicate to people. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. So I've actually been studying this for years. And the person who I've come across that taught it best was Danny Johnson. So, and she really kind of set me off in it to be in a focus. And it's funny because today, somehow I was led to watch part of the Rise conference that I put on in 2019. And I taught on stage this, and it's just like I was just remembering, like, I love to teach this. It's my favorite thing to train on, because and I just know now, just from experience, this is the number one thing that will shift everything in your life. You will sell anything when you can learn how to speak to the person you're talking to. Like, he's not a cookie cutter. You got to figure out like what motivates. So, okay. So what was your question?
So let's talk about squirrel. That's my wife. So let's talk about a couple examples of how we failed in communication. Okay. So I'll give one.
Okay.
because this is the top of mind for me, the biggest point. Here's my biggest one for you guys, but sometimes this might not be for the guy because it could be for the ladies is, let's talk about passion versus intensity. Like, I'm a very passionate guy. Like, I love my life. I love my wife. I love our marriage. We have fought to get where we are today. And so therefore, whether I am, playing the game of business or the game of fitness or the game of whatever, like, I want to win. Right. And so at the end of the day, like, we have to define how we win in our marriage. And many times winning in our marriage is not let's win the argument, or, let's get our point across, or, it's, hey, even in a situation where something happens and it's with the kids, it's with money, it's with sex, it's with whatever, you begin to start getting so passionate, to where you ruin the relationship because you had to get to your yes, or you had to be right, or, whatever. And so at the end of the day, what I'm learning at 20 years in is that sometimes my passion, if it crosses the line into intensity, okay, that does one thing for Rachel, is it really, kind of, in my opinion, kind of crushes you a little bit, where from a standpoint of it's like really what I need to be in some of those situations. And we've talked about this and you told me this, so I know this to be true, is I just need to be gentle. Like, I need to come to her, with whatever the situation is, with gentleness.
Because of my nervous system responds to, I don't know if it's a trauma response or what, but I just know, like, for me personally, like, his job is to bring that just like, I got this. Like,
yeah.
You don't have to do this anymore. You're not alone no more. Like, you, whatever, like that.
And what I've learned, because when you're communicating with the other person, you have to understand that you're communicating based upon their filter. So my passion for solving the problem, my passion for getting us to a solution that can move us forward, that can create peace in and harmony in our marriage, because my end goal is for us to have an incredible marriage, to solve the problem, to do whatever. But the problem is if I'm communicating in the wrong way, thinking in my mind, we're going to get this solved, we're going to take the hill, whatever. But the reality is when I approach it, see, that might work with, say, my brother. Like if I'm doing that with my brother TJ, that works because that's our style. We're both like, let's freaking figure this thing out, or with another guy or whatever. But with my wife, that approach doesn't work because, like you just said, honey, it causes you to feel some type of way. So what I've learned in the marriage, especially in the last 2 months, is that, hey, the outcome is still the same. I still want to solve this problem so that we can move forward, so that we can get more dialed in with our kids or with our money or have more sex or whatever. But the approach that I've been doing it for even so long, men and women, so don't give up, guys. Okay, you might get something wrong for a long time, but the point here is that you can fix it. And so what I've learned over the last month or two is, hey, when we get in these situations, if I want to get to, solve the problem, the best way to solve that problem with you, honey, is to come with gentleness. It's to say, hey, listen, it's kind of the meekness. It's kind of the less is more, if you will, where it's like, hey, when I come to you with that gentleness, now we can really be in a calm place where we can focus on it together and you don't feel some type of way.
A lot of that was my fault, though. A lot of that was my fault, because this is what I'm teaching like women now, is because I operate in a masculine energy for so long, and it's always been a power struggle in our house. It was always so like for me, it's relearning those things, and so he has to relearn too, right? So he in past would come at, and here's one thing I want to give to the women is, don't give up on this. Again, you heard me say, I've been studying this for a really long time. And so the more I study, the more I notice the lack of communication in my own marriage, which, sometimes made me frustrated, and I would complain. And then God got with me, and it was like, you just got to keep praying. But so hold on. And it's all about like your own mindset. When you keep your own mindset focused on the goal, which is myself that, so he just said over the last month, I've been studying it for 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
His is over the last month. So it's
Can
just
I say this? Can I say this real quick?
Yes.
And that came, by the way, guys,
By somebody else.
From somebody else.
Yeah.
That came from Keith Craft. That came from our marriage mastermind that we invest $3,000 a month in. Okay. One of the, we believe in coaching. So this past year, I've had a crypto coach. We invested in a marriage mastermind. We bring a lot of the same stuff to some of the couples that we've coached that are having absolute breakthroughs right now in their marriages. Right. Mm-hmm. And so me sitting in this marriage mastermind at the feet of Keith Craft, and he's talking about, his struggles, okay, being vulnerable, saying, hey, listen, I'm a passionate dude. And if you've ever seen Keith, he's 6'5", 270 pounds, massive. and he was saying, listen, this is an area that I know that I have to be mindful of is taking and as soon as he said it, it was like, boom, that was it for me. Light bulb. Like literally I walked away from that weekend, 2 or 3 things, and I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes it can just be one thing that you get that shifts the course of your life. Because I want to ask you guys that question, men, women, like what if there was just one thing, like this example that we're giving you, that all of a sudden it changed everything in the way that you communicate as husband and wife, that all of a sudden now, instead of you living in an environment that's just sometimes chaotic, now all of a sudden creates peace and harmony. Like, what's that worth to you? Like, what would that shift? And so that did that for us. It also, just another thing for me is I just want to figure things out and I want to make it happen. And sometimes I'll see Rachel doing something and I'm like, there's a better way. Like we could be way more efficient doing X, Y, and Z, because that is a gift that I believe God has given me is I'm very strategic. But here's one thing I've learned is that, you know what? Freedom is when I don't have to worry about what she's doing or how she's doing it, like just saying, hey, listen, if she wants my help or needs me, she'll ask me, versus, saying, hey, you should do it this way or you should do it that way. So over the last month, I feel like I've gotten so much freedom in my life and in our marriage because I've just said, hey, if that's the way you want to do that event or that's the way you want to approach this or that, it's like, go for it. And regardless of whether she's done an event before or not, because that will typically be her response to me as well. I've done this. And so, and just because you've done something, I don't think always means that there can't be a better way. But here's the point is that you begin to start learning in your marriage, in your relationship with your employees, with your kids or whatever, that listen, if there's something that I'm doing that's not working, change the approach.
You just have to find out. And this is the thing about communication that I think a lot of people don't understand. First of all, communication isn't talking, it is listening, right? And it's listening not to respond, but you're listening to understand. Okay. And so like what we hear sometimes isn't what he says to me sometimes. And so I'll give you, for instance, this just happened last week. And here's the deal is women won't say anything and they just let it happen. They let it happen and kill their spirit and kill their spirit and kill their spirit because they're afraid to have their own voice. They're afraid to say anything because in past, well, he always acts like this when I say that, just all the things, to where when communication is, it's my job to make sure the message got across. Okay. It isn't how some people think, hey, take out the trash. And then you come back and you wonder, you come back, the trash hasn't been taken out, but like, did you hear me? No, I didn't. Okay, well, that was my fault. So I should have made sure the message got across. So now.
So what's the example?
So here's the example. But sometimes when I am asking him, say, repeat back to me what I've said to you, it's not to be a B. Yeah. It's to want to make sure, because sometimes I say things I don't mean or everything in my head didn't come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So last week, I spent the whole day just like creating stuff and I was so excited. And, I checked my blog and there's just a lot of people seeing it. And I come down with excitement and I share with my husband. And the first thing he says, he was wanting to know if I got any sales or anything from it, like basically. And so I had a choice
Because
there.
I think outcome.
But normally I would have got offended. So in past, you know, that's what would happen. I didn't say anything. I went upstairs, and this will solve all problems. Is it's all about the delivery and the timing, right? So I'm upstairs, and Holy Spirit's like, go tell him, you know, what you heard. And so it's all in how you package it, right? Because I know his heart. His heart isn't to, you know, put a lid on me or to snuff out my fire, right? And so basically, I come downstairs and I say, hey, can I say something to you? And I just, you know, I know it wasn't your heart, but I want to tell you what I heard when I shared this excitement. Here's what I heard. Oh, still ain't gonna do it. You're still number two, or you're still, you know, like it's never gonna happen. Like that's what I heard. And so I shared it with him with that level of, you know, tone, and just kind of like it I know who I am, but the fact that I still have to do this battle in my whole home sucks. You know, it sucks that I have to still have to battle this in my own home. And that's how it felt. And so he literally, it was amazing. And so I think, you know, when you were talking, I'm like, this is a big problem because they just don't handle the situation. They just shove them under the rug.
So one of the things that was so powerful about that moment personally for me was that you came to me with like the tonality that you weren't upset with me, right? Because like I think as men, when we find our wives being upset with us, right? Like, why didn't you do this? Why did you do it that way? You know, we immediately can become defensive. And instead, I think the teaching point here, friends, is that she came to me and she said, hey, honey, can I share something with you? Like that to me, like was you set me up in a good way to say, hey, I've got something that's important to me that's on my heart that I want to share with you. And I was in a receiving mode versus how many women have you seen this happen, right? You know, or men, you know what I'm talking about, where it's just boom, they just launch right into it. I can't believe that when I did this, you know, or said that this is what you did, and da da da. And it's like, next thing you know, it's like, whoa. And then boom, you know, there's a war of words that happen, right? And we know how fast, by the way, friends, when it comes to communication, especially in your marriage, like how fast a war of words can go from a little spark to a full out fire.
Yeah, your mommy was wrong when she said sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you. Like I'd much rather be hit.
So here's the deal is just being able to, you know, speak in such a way, ladies and guys, because once again, I'm learning gentleness, right? That's what I've been talking about. Like when you have the ability to approach a situation in your marriage with gentleness, like that is how you're going to get that problem corrected way faster than when you come guns a-blazing, right? And so what we've learned is sometimes you just got to walk away, you know, right? Until you're ready. Like you just mentioned, honey, is you went and you thought about it, right? You just didn't come at me right when I said that because that wasn't my intention. But sometimes
what tends to happen is it just makes you like, as the enemy uses other people's mouths, but you know, and so it takes me up into my room, like, you know, he's right. Like I'm always going to be just second best. This is like never going to happen. You could listen to that and you can believe that. And then you keep empowering that. But I know, like, again, it takes me a minute. Like, so we even talk about this with haters. Like I listen to my haters, you know, because sometimes, you know, you guys say, oh, is some of this true? Like, you know, and you got to do it. That's just called wisdom, right? Because the enemy will use anybody's mouth and God will use anybody. The donkey, Balaam's donkey is a prime example. So anyways, what we're talking about.
So here's what I want to just, you know, key on is I've talked about passion versus intensity. Like guys, be mindful of how you are trying to get the result that you want in your marriage. Okay. You know, ladies, be mindful of the way you approach your husband when you want to essentially either A, correct him, right? Or B, just ask him, like a genuine question, or, really share something that's important to you that you want to get across, because that was something that was important to you. It was obviously on your mind, honey, that you went up after I did that. Because once again, we talk about communication through filters. My filter in the way that I think about things is outcome. Like I want to get it done. I want to make it happen. I want to get to where it's finished. And so if I'm doing something where it's in business, it's like, well, hey, a lot of times it's like, well, what's the end result? Like, I don't want to care about all the other fluff. Like I got a strategy, but at the end of the day, it's like, did we get the job done or not? Yes or no? So that was just where my mind went to, was like, and it was also this, it was a problem solver. Like, I'm a problem solver. I'm a fixer, right? Like, I'm a strategist. So it's like, well, hold on. Something seems broke there. That was really more in that particular
That's
situation.
Just men in
Yeah.
general.
Like in that situation, when Rachel came to me and said, well, hey, I had this many views on my blog, and it wasn't even about sales as much as it was, well, did it turn into this? And if it didn't turn into this, why didn't it? Something seems broke there. So it wasn't about lessening the effect of how awesome it was about the amount of people that are looking at her blog. It was more of me of like, okay, but why are we not getting to the next step? And that's where my mind went. And once again, that's me. That had nothing to do with anything. Here's my point. It had nothing to do negatively, if that's right, about her, right? But because of her wisdom and her maturity, okay, she was able to go and know that about me. We got that wisdom years ago, by the way, by a great couple named Nate and Linda Carr in an airport in Dallas, Texas, coming home, where they said to us one time, hey, listen, as long as you truly understand and believe in your marriage that your partner would never purposely do anything to hurt you or harm you, that one foundational belief system in your marriage will be a game changer. Thank you, Nate and Linda, for that, because now the enemy can't go and create offense. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to make a mistake, husband or wife, or say something you shouldn't say or do something you shouldn't do, but it gives the other person peace knowing that, hey, listen, they didn't really do it. What was going on with them? Maybe you had a bad day at work. Maybe there's something going on. Like, like there's always something deeper, right?
Yeah.
So it takes great humility for me when Rachel's maybe having a bad day, or hormones are a little off, or she's dealing with something. This happens. Yeah, but you still have that. I mean, once again. So anyhow,
So I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we were talking about the approach, right? So my approach. And so, all my clients are CEO, right? And one of them like professionals, just like, there are certain type of personality where they are running it, like in their businesses and in their jobs, and they make the mistake to not take that hat off when they walk in the door.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I help my clients with now is just some things like, man, we got to shift the energy. You can't just glide from one energy to the next and just bring it all in, right? You got to you have to release the tension of the day, and then you got to set a new intention, because we were talking about this morning. Y'all, you have an aroma coming off of you. So whatever that aroma is, you can lie all you want. You're going to have an aroma coming off of you. So if you got this aroma of, I am, I'm going to go in here and take charge, and something's not right, I'm going to point it out. Why didn't you do this? And why didn't you do that? And then you're upset, versus resetting your energy and attention from chief executive officer to chief encouragement officer. But you have to see some women, they think they're just all in their mind of, oh, I gotta do, and they never stop and breathe, and they're missing the moments anyways, because you're not transitioning. You're just going from running through your day and missing most of it. So when you could stop and be more intentional, especially coming into the house. So if you have to leave the house for the day or whatever, even at home, when we worked at home, and we do, right? It's like, I'm really working on this. I've not mastered this, but I want to be more intentional about when I come out of the office. I'm not like drained, because I'm doing I'm creating in there. I'm like so juiced. But sometimes, Kurt's like training right now. So it's a different kind of energy. And I have to make sure that, I kind of shift out of that so that I can bring more energy to pour back into him, because if he doesn't, because, let's be honest, he has not mastered this. Okay, guys, like we're still working on this in the house. Like when he did have an like, please leave your phone in the car, like lasted a couple of days, and it's not because of prioritization. He's just passionate about what he just, whatever. So we're working on that whole boundaries thing.
It's always, I just really feel, what's Pastor Keith say about it's like what we're going to talk about. We're always going to
talk about.
But what does he say?
Because what we talk about, we're going to always talk about. And I say it because it doesn't land. Like, right. It's like, I'm talking to you 100%, but you only get 25%. So you have to it's a communication thing. You just have to keep talking about it. Again, like, and those things are just something that always happens because of the DNA of us.
Yes. So what I think about is this, friends, is, as you are looking at key communication within your marriage, this is my hope for you for this one particular podcast episode, is that you will talk about with your spouse, okay, because you're probably listening to this by yourself, is think about one area in your life, whether it's your sex life, whether it's your kids, whether it's your money, just whatever, okay, and just say, you know what, how can I approach my spouse in a different, way to try to get this problem solved? Okay,
if it's not working, I mean, that's insanity when you keep trying, like you got to stop and think, because, it's about thinking, guys, and you have to change the way you're thinking. If it's not working, whatever you're doing, like we always ask that question on our calls, like with people who are wanting to coach with us, we're like, okay, and how's that been working for you?
Yeah. Because you know how many times you'll tell somebody to do something and it's like, or they'll say, I've tried everything. And it's like, well, tell me, what have you tried? And they'll say one thing. And then it's like, okay, and then what? And it's like, well, then I tried this. And it's like, okay, and then what? And it's like, that's it. Like they tried like two different things. The problem is they tried to do the same two things over and over and over and over again, and it didn't work. Yeah. Okay. So you have to really identify the area of your life, in as far as your marriage that's not working. Okay. And here's the thing I know is whether your marriage is
communication, I guarantee
whether your marriage is on the verge of a divorce or it's good or fair right now, or it's even great, there's always another level, right? Like there's a world-class level. And so if we understand the importance of communication being so foundational, and there's so many different areas in your marriage, once again, sex, kids, money, just whatever, business, right? Like, Rachel and I, we always have something that we can talk about and that we can communicate about and really try to figure out, are we growing in this area? So I can just personally say for us that I'm super excited in this journey, okay, because this is a new season for Rachel and I, where our kids have graduated. 2 kids got married last year. 2 kids got, graduated. There's only one at home now. We're kind of moved into different, seasons of life, so to speak, than what our last, say, 3 or 4 or 5 years have looked like. And so there's new things. And so with new things come new ways to handle those things, right? It's like, hey, we had a schedule and we did it this way. And now it's like, well, maybe we need to change it up and do it a little bit differently, right? So there's always stuff that's going on. And that's the reason why a weekly date night is so important. That's the reason why, spending time together, Rachel and I, every morning. Is it every morning? Yeah. Babe, like every single morning we come together and we pray together.
Call me if I'm traveling or you're traveling.
Yeah. We come together, we pray together, we do a devotion together that has 2 or 3 questions that creates dialogue. And we talk about things, right? Whether it doesn't have to necessarily be just in the morning, during our devotion time or the once a week date night. No, it's like we both have given each other permission to, if there's something that's unsettled, to come and talk about it. And we understand the significance of how we approach that talk. Yeah. Right. And so I want you to think about that. How can I change my approach in my marriage in a particular area that I'm not getting the result that I want. And if I could just change that approach a little bit and even go ask your wife, your spouse, I got a question that I'm going to ask my wife after this podcast. I can't ask it here on the podcast. It might be a little whatever, but anyhow, about how can I do this better? So, because why? Because I want her.
Since when do we not talk about everything?
So anyhow,
in front of everybody. It's a freedom,
y'all. Could be some sexual stuff here. But it's like, hey, I want to make sure that I'm pleasing you, that we're having, Garrett and his wife would talk about it probably. So anyhow, but it's like, hey, like you got to talk about things. Yeah. Okay. And you got to be able to communicate about things and to say, hey, listen, because why? Because I want her to be fulfilled. And I know that she wants me to be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And we want you in your marriages to be fulfilled, because let's be real. Tony Robbins says it like this: success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So in closing, honey, anything last that you want to add before we wrap it up? No, but this is why I was thinking about like just all these personality things out there, and over the years doing them all. And like for my certain personality, I'm like, I need one for people like me who it's like 2 minutes long. It's not 50 questions, it's like real simple. So I created one. That's it. I recreated one. So it's the Warrior Woman Leadership Code Assessment. Literally take you 2 minutes. And here's the importance of it. A lot of people, and we'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes. A lot of people stop at, well, this is what I am. I'm this person. They stop there. And that's good. You need to know how you communicate, but it's really, if you want to impact the kingdom of God, you got to learn other people's. You got to learn how to motivate somebody else, that the person you're talking to is motivated by fun, and you're giving them all the numbers and that you've lost them in 10 seconds, like you've lost the sale, right? Or this person, what's the thing is like, people don't care about how much you know, but until they know how much you care. And so I love people. And I want to know about somebody. Like, so when I sit somebody down, when somebody meets me for the first time, I'm literally like, so you were born and then what? Literally, that's how it goes. Rachel is a great connector. She asks great questions. She listens so well because she really does care. Because I really want to know. Like, and that's why I should have therapy and do podcasts, because I'm always the one, like when we're meeting with people, I'm like, I'm the one, like, I want to know, like, I want to know all about you. Literally from my heart. Yeah. You do an excellent job. So anyways, I created the assessment. It'll be in the show links. And so it's really a powerful thing. Or they could go to your website, racheltucker.com, right? And find it. And it's a navigation link at the top. It says Warrior Woman Leadership Code Assessment. Awesome. So guys, I want to close with this is, remember, we are all a work in progress, but don't let that be an excuse for you to not take action on what we shared with you today, and understanding that communication can absolutely change your life, because when you change your marriage, trust me, your life will be changed. Yeah. And as Pastor Keith says, if you can get your marriage right, you can get anything right. Like, marriage is the ultimate business. It was the first relationship, if you will, that God created. And let's be real, more marriages end than businesses do, right? 50% of marriages end in divorce. And my personal belief is that it's because people quit on learning how to communicate. Once you learn how to communicate, it actually becomes beautiful. Like, one of the things that Rachel and I do every day, not only our morning time, but generally in the evenings, is we sit down and we have a cocktail. Soon to be switching that cocktail to You Relax a little bit. Put my link in the show notes for that. But anyhow, what we come together and we talk about things. How was your day? Right? What are you excited about? How can I help you? Right? And so that constant communication is going to, if you communicate the right way, is going to build into your marriage. And once your marriage continues to level up, everything around you is going to level up. And that's what we want for you. And by the way, we do work with couples. We do work with people. So if your marriage is really struggling and you're like, hey, like, I could do this, but like, that's just, we're at the point where it's really a struggle to communicate. And I might need some deep work myself Because can I be real with you for a second, is a lot of times it does take a woman or a man to say, listen, I need to fix some stuff in myself first. Like that was the game changer for Rachel and I in our marriage years ago, and really continuing to be, is that we have the ability to look at the person in the mirror and say, something's got to shift in this person first before it can shift together. And if you need that help, if you're just like, I've tried this before, it's just not working. Can I just encourage you, don't quit. Don't give up. Reach out. Yeah. Let's get on a call. Let's talk about how we might be able to help you, because I'm telling you that, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, a year of your life of making an investment in yourself. And maybe there's some mindsets that need to be shifted. Maybe there's some belief systems that need to be recreated. There's some things that need to be unpacked and let go of. But trust me when I say your marriage is worth it. The investment that you will make in you and your marriage is worth it.
Divorce is really, really expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah. Okay. And it's not even, it
kills a legacy. Done.
It's about the money, but it's about so much more. So anyhow, send Rachel or I a DM marriage, and we'll connect with you, and we'll see if we can go deeper. So anyhow, all right, guys. Well, hey, we love you. We will see you on the next episode of the Champion Life podcast. Go out there.
Me, by the way.
Thank you for jumping on.
Yes, and we have to tell the story before we go, Brooke. I know he hates when I do this, but this is good. So every Saturday he asked me last minute, like, and I.
You want to do a podcast with me?
I don't do last minute stuff. I just don't. And I'm like, every Saturday, I'm like, nope. Well, I felt like he's probably getting a dopamine hit off that because he knows I'm gonna say no, right? Well, today I threw him off, and he comes out and he goes, "Would you do a podcast with me?" I said, "Yep." And he was like,
so totally had to revamp my entire podcast today, but it was so worth it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I'll ask for my payment later. All right, y'all. Love you guys. Have a blessed day. Go keep being awesome. And we'll talk to you on the next episode. See ya.